Hey everyone, I'm the person who made the page. Okay, so we have a Michael Jordan fan who wants to go on. He's from YouTube, and he wants to go by the name of Brandon. He has Michael Jordan as number one, and he would like to explain why Michael Jordan is number one. So let me put him on. Hey, thank you for coming to the program.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? You have Michael Jordan as number one? Feel free to explain if you like.
All right, well, I'm going to explain why Michael Jordan's the greatest player ever, which, in my opinion, he is, because in every phase, if you're going to judge a player by greatness, Michael Jordan checks all the boxes. Just from the intangibles perspective, if you look at what he could do on the basketball court, he's 6'6", 220 pounds. He could shoot mid-range. He could drive. He could do anything. He could pass, rebound, do anything you want, as we've seen in 1986, 1987, when Dean Smith, I believe, I'm not too sure on what year. I'm not too sure on the year, but I remember one year Doug Collins let him play point guard, and he had 10 straight triple-doubles. He could do anything on the basketball court, and his achievements are another thing that makes him the greatest ever. 6 championships, 6
Well,
finals.
let me, just real quick. So when you explained some of the things he was able to do, there were lots of players who could do wonderful things. When you explained that he had a few games where he was doing wonderful for a few games in a row, there were lots of players who had wonderful games in a row.
Well, yeah, of course, but a lot of people don't think, because it's gotten lost in history, that Michael Jordan wasn't a player who could rebound like LeBron James or a player like that, or pass like LeBron James, but he does both of those just as good as LeBron James or a Larry Bird type player.
Well, remember,
even I would say Magic Johnson.
There's no debate on what educated fans know what Michael Jordan can do. So there's no debate on that with educated fans. And there are fans who think things and don't know certain things, but when you bring up what they think about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, it's a different topic. The topic is, you have Michael Jordan as number one, and why do you think he's number one?
Yeah, that's true. You don't win, 3 All-Star MVPs, 10 scoring titles, 11 All-NBAs, 5 MVPs. He's done everything you can.
Okay, so now it's resume time. So now this is resume time. So his awards, his achievements, his accolades, could even throw in his statistics. There are lots of players who have wonderful awards, wonderful accolades, wonderful achievements, wonderful statistics, wonderful resumes. You guys assume that Michael Jordan has the best resume, and you guys don't seem to know there are other players who have just as good of a resume or a better resume than Michael Jordan. Why is Michael Jordan's resume the best? How do you know he's number one?
Well, because of the time he played in. I mean, you could bring up players like Bill Russell, but when Bill Russell was in his prime, there was 11 teams in the NBA. When Michael Jordan was playing, there was 29, 30 teams in the NBA, and it's just not the same. There's more competition. I mean, he's won, just as a basketball player, he's won at every level. He's won at high school. He won a championship.
Well, there have been lots of players who won at every level. Michael Jordan is not the only one who won at every level. And then when you mentioned about less teams means that there's more less teams mean less competition, that doesn't make any sense. You're just making things up. I mean, right now, if you took out 4 teams in the NBA, that doesn't mean the NBA is better or worse. It just means you took out 4 teams. In fact, you can make the point that the NBA is better because when you take out the teams, you have less roster spots, so then certain players are not going to stay in the NBA.
Well, that's just less competition. There's just less people to go through. I mean, I'm not saying
okay, so think of it right now. So right now we have about whatever amount of teams there are right now. Imagine you took out half the teams in the NBA. So now you're going to have less roster spots. Only the better players can stay. Are the better players going to be in the NBA? Of course, because you have less roster spots. So you're just assuming because there's less teams, the NBA is not as good competition. You don't know that.
Well, as a player perspective, maybe not, but as a team's perspective, it only makes sense. Less teams means there's less people to go through to win a championship. I mean, Bill Russell had to face 10 other teams to win a championship. Today, when Michael Jordan was playing, he had to face 28, 29 other teams when he was playing. So,
but how does having more teams mean the NBA is better? If you add 11 teams tomorrow, that doesn't make the NBA better. It just means you have more roster spots.
You have more competition. I mean, we can argue all day. I mean, if it does or doesn't, but it's just more competition, more games.
Okay, so by that logic, 1,000 years from now, 1,000 years, when they have more and more teams, does that mean the future will have better competition than Michael Jordan's era, the era that you guys love so much?
It honestly, it depends on the situation of the league and where basketball goes, because it's not just
no. We'll assume. No, you're right. It doesn't. I agree with you. You are right. It depends. It's not just about teams, but that is one of your arguments, that it's about teams. So we're going to apply the same logic in the future. If your logic is Michael Jordan's era is one of the best or the best, and your logic is, please correct me if I'm wrong, I want to make sure we get your details, that Michael Jordan, even in the future, will be number one, then by that logic, even in the future when they add more teams, that era, which has more competition, which means they're better according to you, will be better than Michael Jordan's era.
Well, to say that, if there's more teams and better competition in the NBA in the future, I don't think anybody could put up the statistics or the resume that Michael Jordan has. Doesn't matter the era. I mean,
but hold on. One thing at a time. Let's establish one thing at a time. We're going to go by. I know you want to go by totality of everything, and I respect that. But one of your points is teams. More teams means more competition. Are you being consistent with that?
More teams is more competition, yes. I stand by that. In the case of Bill Russell versus Michael Jordan.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I'd like, if you don't mind. Number one, how do you know when there's more teams it means more competition? And number two, when they add more teams in the future, 1,000 years from now, are you willing to acknowledge that league will be more competitive than the league Michael Jordan played in the NBA?
I will be willing to say it will be more competitive, because basketball will obviously evolve towards, better things and better players. But as of right now, that hasn't happened yet. There's still 30 teams.
Well, that has happened. No, that has happened. They have more teams since Michael Jordan came in the NBA.
Well, how many teams? Okay, well, let's say 1998. There was.
Well, you're going. No, he didn't come in 1998. He came in. No. You're going by 1998 when he was pretty much leaving. Yeah. So when he came in the NBA, there were less teams. Yeah. When he came in the NBA, there was less teams. As time passed, there were more teams.
Let me get my facts straight. How many teams were in 1998? I believe there was 28 or 29 teams.
You're going by 1998. You're going by when he was leaving.
In 1985 was his first year. Let me see how many teams.
Okay, so he came in 1984-85. I don't have the exact number of how many teams there were, but there were less teams compared to later on when he was in the NBA.
That's true. There were.
Okay, so by your logic, Michael Jordan in the 90s played in a better competition, better era than Michael Jordan in the 80s.
Yes. I believe that.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a new one. Okay, so we've established that you believe in the future, when they have more teams, that the league is going to be better than the time Michael Jordan played in. So you are not one of those Michael Jordan fans who believe that Michael Jordan will always be number one in the future. So you disagree with your own Michael Jordan fans. Okay, number two, you're acknowledging that 1990s NBA for Michael Jordan was better than 1980s NBA for Michael Jordan. Okay. Most people think Michael Jordan in the 80s was a better player, but obviously he won more championships if you want to go by championships. I don't, but Jordan fans want to go by championships. That's fine.
I think he was the more complete player in the 90s, because in the 80s he was scoring a lot of points, but in the 90s he learned how to win. He learned how to shoot the mid-range better.
No problem.
Do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. So I don't go by championships. You do. Or some Michael Jordan fans do. I'm assuming you do too, right?
Well, it's a factor. Obviously, he went 6-0 in the finals. He's 6 MVPs. That's greatness, and he played in a very competitive era in the NBA. Okay, so now the next thing becomes. I still want to make sure this is. Now we go over this. How do you know when they have more teams that means the NBA is more competitive? If they add one team tomorrow,
Does that make the NBA better than yesterday's NBA with one less team?
Well, I think one team no, it doesn't make a difference. But when it goes to 11 to 28, I do think it does, because basketball was still, I wouldn't say an infancy stage, but it was upcoming sport, and in the 90s it really peaked as a popularity, and everybody wanted to play basketball. And it's growing today, but from when Bill Russell was winning championships to when Michael Jordan was winning championships, basketball was a lot different. There's, the pace was a lot higher back in Bill Russell's days.
We'll get to that. I want to get to the team thing. So you don't want to go by one team makes it better. You go by certain numbers. You mentioned 11, 28, or whatever. So you have to be specific. How do you know having more teams makes the league better, and what number of teams do you know makes a difference? So if it's not one, and you come up with whatever number, 11, 28, how do you know that certain amount of teams, numbers, makes it more competitive in the NBA?
Well, let's go back in history. If we look in the Bill Russell era, the Celtics era, when he was winning championships, you could see there was only about 4 competitive teams in that whole league.
How do you know that? How do you know there was only 3?
If you just look at the records of the teams, a lot of teams were losing games. They were not.
Well, no, if you have 8 teams, if you have one team that wins 60, then that means another team has to lose 30. So you're going to have certain teams winning more and certain teams winning less. It's a matter of mathematics and numbers. It doesn't mean they're less competitive. You're downplaying when he played in as if the era just wasn't good. But if you believe that, that's fine. You can believe whatever you want. You have to be able to back it up and prove it. If you think it's a fact, how do you know it's true?
Well, I just think it's the eras, different eras. Personally, I think Michael Jordan's era was a better era of basketball to play in. It was a more competitive league than when Bill Russell was playing, and because there was two leagues. There's the ABA and the NBA. So not all the best players were playing in the NBA. A lot of them were playing in the ABA, and that really, the competitive scale was really let down by that. There's 2.
How do you know that? I know. How do you know these things? I know what you're explaining, but how do you know these things? Because a lot of the ABA players who went to the NBA did well. There's no study that shows
all the ABA
players but there's no study that shows. Well, if you know that, then if you know the best players are still the top kind of players in that level, how do you just downplay and dismiss the ABA then?
No, I'm not dismissing the ABA. I'm dismissing Bill Russell. I'm not dismissing, but I'm saying when Bill Russell was winning championships in the NBA, a lot of the best players in the country were playing for the ABA. They weren't. It wasn't all one league like it is today, or like it was with Michael Jordan. There was no ABA when Michael was playing. It was all the best players played in the NBA. That proves that all the best players. All the best players were not in the NBA. They were in the ABA and the NBA, and other places, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying with Bill Russell. But in Michael Jordan's era, there wasn't an ABA because the merger was 71, I believe, or somewhere near there. So you're pretty much saying that all the best players were playing in the NBA when Michael Jordan was playing, if you get what I'm saying.
No, so then you're going to hold it against, if you believe that his era is just better just because he has more ABA players, you can make that point if you want, but you're not doing it just for that. You're not just saying, hey, just because there was an ABA and NBA, that makes the era less. You're also giving up other things, like they played less, there was less teams, and, I know how Michael Jordan fans think about past eras, so I'm still, I don't understand why, on the one hand, you make it seem like you're not trying to downplay and dismiss the eras, but that's what you're doing. You are basically making it seem hey, they had ABA players and they had more teams, and therefore they're better. And then in the future they're going to be better.
No, I think if you look at it, it's a fact. It's not my opinion. I don't think, if you honestly look at the facts, there was an ABA and an NBA.
Right.
Bill Russell played in the NBA, and he won championships there. But let's say if you took all the ABA players and put them in the NBA, I don't think he would have won all those championships. So that kind of discredits his his championship
But
runs
now
because not all the
now
best
we're just
players in
coming
the
up with
country.
guesses. You don't know what would or would not happen. You can't hold, and plus you can't. What is Bill Russell supposed to do? Is he supposed to not play in the NBA because he's like, you know what? If I lose, they're going to say Bill Russell lost. If I win, they're going to say, well, he didn't have that much competition. So no matter what Bill Russell does, he lost because people in the future know better than Bill Russell and people who play at that time. No matter what Bill Russell does, it's a lose-lose situation. So you're holding it against him for what the league was. What was he supposed to do? Not play? Play more? Win more?
I mean, it's just unfortunate.
Not go by
it's
numbers?
unfortunate for Bill Russell. It's unfortunate for Bill Russell because there's nothing he could have done. That's just the era he played in.
No, it's not unfortunate for me. It's not unfortunate for other NBA fans. It's unfortunate for Michael Jordan fans. Why is it unfortunate for you?
Well, it's unfortunate because his resume, you could never compare to someone even that played in the 90s or the 80s or the early 2000s because the league was just much different. There was more competition, more,
Well, you
more
keep
teams,
saying
better
there
players.
was more competition. You keep saying that, but the only thing you definitively gave a good point, actually, just so you know. The only definitive thing you gave was, hey, there was no separation of ABA and NBA. That was the only thing you gave. But other than that, you're just assuming the competition was better. There's no definitive reason that you have to know for sure that the competition was better. And by the way, if you're saying it's unfortunate for Bill Russell, if that's what you really want to go by, then by your logic, you can't have Michael Jordan as number one because there was never a situation for him to compare to another situation. Because according to you, Bill Russell, unfortunately, that was your point, didn't play in a good league. So Michael Jordan had no other competition to compare to. It was just Michael Jordan there, and that's it.
Well, the question I'm asking is why, if you think Michael Jordan isn't the greatest player, why didn't somebody from the 90s come up and challenge him? Because it kind of looked a little, other than the Jazz.
They did.
It looked like
they did. He lost
even,
in the 90s. Well, first of all,
he did lose.
one
He
player
lost,
doesn't...
yeah, he lost when he came back. When he came back and he was not himself, he lost to the Orlando Magic in 95 or 96,
I'll get to that.
I believe. Yes,
I'll get to that. So, first of all, when you say why didn't anyone else win and stuff, one player doesn't win a ring. It's not. This is not golf or tennis or wrestling or anything like that. This is a team game. So there's no point in. Well, you say obviously, but you're asking why didn't anyone else? I don't have your exact words and exact quote then, but why didn't anyone else beat them? You're asking as if it's an individual sport. It's a team game. So the question is, why didn't another team beat the Bulls team? Not why didn't it's not like Michael Jordan did it by himself. And then when you also ask why didn't anyone beat him, well, he did lose in the 90s. He didn't win every year in the 90s, did he?
No, he didn't. He retired.
And you mentioned that mentioned the reason is because he was rusty and things like that. I don't know why Michael Jordan fans always do that. Number one, you don't know he was rusty. You don't know that. You're assuming that. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. You don't know. Number two.
He was playing baseball.
Number two, that's his choice.
Baseball. You got to be.
Yeah, I know what he did. So number two, that's his choice. He decided what to do, when to come back. So that means it's like Bill Russell's lose-lose situation. It's a lose-lose situation with Mike too. If Michael Jordan wins, you guys will be like, look, everyone. The man won. He barely played any games. He came out of retirement. He only had a few games, and he still won. Oh, he's number one. If he doesn't win, he was rusty anyway. So it's a lose-lose situation. You just want Mike to be number one. And then number three, none of the other teammates, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, his coach Phil Jackson, nobody said Michael Jordan was rusty or wasn't the same. And number four, even if he was, because maybe you're right, maybe he was rusty. I'm not closed-minded. He could have been rusty. Check the numbers. Check his numbers, how he was doing. In fact, even if you don't have his numbers, ask fellow Michael Jordan fans how he did. At the time in the 90s, do you know what they were saying about Mike? Oh, man, he came back after a few games, and he's still Michael Jordan. He's still the best player in the league. He's still the number one player of all time. Look, everyone, 2 games back against the New York Knicks, 55 points or whatever he did, whenever that game was. So for you guys, it's always a lose-lose situation. When he does well, look, everyone, number one. When he doesn't do well, we have a variable. When another star does well, bring him down. When another star doesn't do well, you don't have the same consistency of why that star didn't do well.
Well, you said that people didn't think people thought he was the same Michael Jordan. If you look at the stats, he played 17 games in 1995. he wasn't the same guy. He's scoring 27 points a game on 41% shooting. That's just not the same as the next season. He was much better in less minutes. So obviously,
so why did he? Okay, so there's a flip. But hold on, but there's a playoffs. How did he do in the playoffs? If he's still scoring that many points, his field goal percentage might be here, down, and there. You don't cherry pick a win you want to go by. You have to go by all the games. He still won in the first. He still went to the playoffs, obviously. They won the first round. He did well against the Orlando Magic. Lots of people, again, were saying Michael Jordan is still the best player of all time, the best player in the NBA. He still hasn't changed. Hey, everyone, he only played a few games, and he's still doing well. And now, as time passed and he lost, you guys have changed the history books. It became he was rusty, he wasn't the same, he wasn't doing as well. You can't have it both ways. And again, none of the other teammates, Phil Jackson, explained that he was rusty or he wasn't the same. And even if they did, it's his choice when he wanted to come back. Why are you not? It's like a boxer. An older boxer goes against a younger boxer. If he wins, they'll say, oh, look, everyone, an older boxer won. If he loses, oh, he was old anyway. It's his choice if he wants to come back. Why don't you just acknowledge it's his choice when he wanted to come back? Why did he come back? Why didn't he wait a few more games? Why didn't he come back next season? And by the way, did you ever stop and think that maybe he did it because he wanted to be more fresh? He wanted to have less games in the regular season? That he purposely came back later so he can have an easier ride in the playoffs and have an easier time to win a championship ring? Can you imagine, man? If LeBron James did what Michael Jordan did, what if LeBron James came back late in the season just to win a ring? What would you guys be saying about LeBron? Oh, you know what? That ring doesn't. What if he won the ring? You guys would have been like, that ring doesn't count. He just purposely came back to have less games. He wanted to have an easier time to win.
No, that's true. And I don't think I ever said Michael Jordan had a perfect career. I said he's the greatest player ever, which, you know, nobody's perfect. No one's going to have a perfect NBA career, but he's probably the closest to it. Yeah, there was 1995 where he came back. It wasn't the same. I mean, you could debate if he was, but obviously, and in the 80s, he got bullied by numerous teams. He wasn't winning. He wasn't going to the finals, but he had a stretch. He had two stretches. He had 2 3-peat championships, which was some of the greatest basketball. Was the greatest basketball I've ever seen, and a lot of people agree.
And I can find other players who had just as good of a stretch or better. Magic Johnson played 12 years. In 12 years, he went to the finals 9 times, and he won 5 rings, 1 less than Michael Jordan, and then he retired at 31. That's a pretty good stretch. I could have given you Bill Russell's stretch, but you downplay his whole era, so we won't even do that. Larry Bird had a good stretch where he won 3 MVPs in a row. The Shaq Lakers and Kobe Lakers had a pretty good stretch. Why do you guys assume it's only Mike, and Mike is number one?
We have Shaq and Kobe. That's 2 players. Scotty's a great player. I'm not going to discredit his whole career just because Michael Jordan's the greatest. But no, Scotty's a great player. But if I could give you, let's say we had a fantasy draft and we said, okay, Scottie Pippen's on the board or Kobe Bryant's on the board. I think we're all going to take Kobe Bryant. With Magic Johnson, you said he had a great stretch, but he also
I know what you're saying. Man. You're basically giving the point. I know where this is going. You're basically giving the point that they had better teams and Michael Jordan had less stars, right?
I'm not completely saying that. What I'm just trying to say was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he had James Worthy, he had other star players. I would debate if Scottie Pippen's even a star player. I think Jordan made him what he was.
No, hold on. You said you're not going to do that, but that's what you're doing. You're saying basically, I know this routine, man. Michael Jordan had less stars compared to the other stars.
Essentially, yes, because it's just true. Okay. Essentially.
Okay. No, it's not true. That's you making up stuff. So what you guys are doing, again, you're proving my point, man. You're trying to find, no matter what the topic is, there's always an excuse or variable for Mike, and that's fine. I'm not holding that against you necessarily, but then you're not consistent with that excuse. With Michael Jordan, hey guys, Michael Jordan won, and you know what? When he lost, he was older in Washington. In 1995, he was rusty. In the 80s, he was young and inexperienced, and he never had a good enough team like other stars. And that's okay. You want to do that routine, that's fine. But then when other stars lose, you guys don't give the same pass and variable that they were older, they were rusty, they didn't have enough stars, they were young and inexperienced. It's only with Mike, and that's because you just want Mike to be number one. Don't you see what you're doing, man? You have an out. You always have a variable for Mike, but you're not consistent with other stars.
Well, I think I'm pretty consistent because nobody likes to mention Magic Johnson coming back in 1996 and being overweight, being 32 years old. No one wants to mention that. That's just essentially what he did, what Michael Jordan did in Washington. The only difference was Michael Jordan played a much higher level of basketball. He was still scoring 20 points a game. He was still being a productive player. Magic Johnson just wasn't that.
The comparison doesn't make it. The comparison doesn't make
career.
The comparison doesn't make any sense, man. Magic Johnson played less games than Michael Jordan. Magic Johnson came off the bench. Magic Johnson is not a score first. He could score 30 points, but he's a pass first player, so he's going to have less statistics. Magic Johnson was on a playoff contending team that wanted to win. They went to the playoffs. Michael Jordan was on a losing team that didn't win to the playoffs. And I'm not holding it against Mike. But if Michael Jordan's Washington Wizards was in the playoffs or winning, you guys would have been like, look, everyone, at his age, he comes back out of retirement and there's Washington Wizards are in the playoffs and they're winning. But when Magic Johnson wins, he was overpound and overweight and he had less statistics. It's always a pass for Mike, and you're not consistent with other stars.
It's not a pass for Michael Jordan. I'm just saying, why couldn't Magic Johnson be this almost like half of the player that he was with in past years? Because he was obviously a much less of a player. But when Michael Jordan came back, he was 38 years old, 2 years older than Magic Johnson was, and he played productive basketball. You look at the numbers, you can compare him to players today that are making the All-Star team. Why couldn't Magic Johnson do that? Because he's not Michael Jordan. That's the only reason.
Well, first of all, remember, the debate is not about who's better, Magic or Mike. I think Magic was a better player than Mike. You don't. That's fine. The debate is, why do you have Michael Jordan as number one? So far, you've given lots of reasons and variables and excuses, but you're not being consistent. The only good point you made was that the ABA and NBA were separated. That was actually a very fair point. Everything else has just been, I'm guessing, I think so, probably, and you're not being fair to other stars.
Well, I mean, it can sound like that, but we can, if we want to go straight statistics, we can do that too. I mean, there's no player that could compare to Michael Jordan's statistics with his pace.
There sure is.
He did so much.
That is factually not true. When you say there's none, I don't know. I'm surprised you even asked me that. That is factually not true. There's a guy by the name of Wilt Chamberlain.
If you compare the pace of Michael Jordan when he was playing to the pace of Wilt Chamberlain, when he was playing, the pace was a lot higher with Wilt Chamberlain. That's why his stats are greatly inflated. And that's why we kind of downplay as a whole NBA community his stats because
no.
Go ahead.
No, we don't. No, the educated community does not do that. Only Michael Jordan fans and maybe some LeBron, Kobe, and other young fans do that. Educated fans as a community do not downplay Wilt Chamberlain's past. It's you guys who do that. You Michael Jordan fans.
If they both played in the same pace, Michael Jordan's stats are just better. They're
not better. That's factually not. No, you're making things up, man. Wilt Chamberlain's stats are factually better.
That's the pace of the play. Because they were scoring, they were putting up a lot more shots in Wilt Chamberlain's time, so that brings more points and rebounds. That's why.
Okay, but hold on. But now you're cherry picking something. So first of all, I don't even know if that's true that they were putting up more shots. No, but you said there was no one who had as good stats as Mike. So and that's a factually wrong sentence to say. There were people who had factually better stats than Mike or as good as Mike. It's not just Wilt Chamberlain if you don't like Wilt Chamberlain. Remember, man, no star is going to have the exact same numbers. This is not like baseball where lots of people bat 300, lots of people hit 40 home runs. Basketball, actually, even in baseball, no one has the exact same numbers. But there are players who have certain numbers that are on the level of Mike or better than Mike. So, for example, you don't like Wilt Chamberlain? No problem. Elgin Baylor, Dr. J, Larry Bird, Jerry West.
Elgin Baylor just doesn't have the success that Michael Jordan would. Neither does.
But again, now you're going back to the ring thing. No, but you're going back to the ring thing.
One All-Star games.
One player doesn't win
scoring
rings.
Championships. No, I'm talking about his other accolades. He has so many.
Okay, but so do but other players have so many accolades. Again, Wilt Chamberlain. There's no one who has more records than Wilt Chamberlain. Nobody. His resume is the number one resume. Yeah, his resume is, if you want to go by records, accolades, achievements, stats, there is no one close to Wilt Chamberlain. You're acting like it's a fact that Michael Jordan has better stats when you are factually wrong. That's not an opinion, man. It's a fact. Wilt Chamberlain has better stats than Michael Jordan. He has the most records of any player in the NBA. It's not even close. And he has pretty much similar type of level of achievements and accolades.
Well, the accolades, I mean, they're close, but they don't match up to Mike's. Speaking about Wilt Chamberlain, they don't match up.
They're not close. They're not close, man. No, they're not close. You're saying something factually wrong. This is not an opinion like, do you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream? Do you like the Los Angeles or New York? This is a fact.
If you look at the awards that Wilt Chamberlain won, they're very close to Michael's, but they're not Michael's. Michael's won more scoring championships.
No, but you're going. But hold on, you're going by the totality of everything. You're not going by one thing. You're going by everything: stats, records, achievements, accolades. So when you go by everything, nobody is on the level of Wilt Chamberlain's resume. But even if you want to go by whatever thing you want to go by, Wilt Chamberlain has lots of records, lots of achievements, lots of stats, lots of accolades. You can pick either one. Remember, man, no one's going to have the same amount, exact 100% resume, but other players have a resume that's on the level of Michael Jordan or better than Michael Jordan.
Well, if we go to advanced stats, which I don't like to go to, but you say he has better, Wilt Chamberlain factually has better statistics than Michael Jordan. If we look at their player efficiency rating, we can see that Michael Jordan has a higher player efficiency rating than Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, so but you're cherry picking your stats. So first of all, I don't go by advanced stats, and I guess you don't like them either. So we're even on that. But even if you want to go by advanced stats, man, you don't cherry pick an advanced stat. I'm sure I can find advanced stats where other players are just as good as Mike or better than Mike. And if you really want to go by advanced stats, man, then you're going to have to go by everything. There are some ridiculous advanced stats that have things like, I don't have the exact ones, but just to give you an idea, something like how Anthony Davis is the third best, most efficient player of all time, or Draymond Green is one of the top defenders of all time. It's not that these are not true. It's just that these are analytics are just ridiculous, man. They're pointless.
Mm.
They're overanalyzing, man. But if you want to go by analytics, just be fair. Just be fair. Go by all the analytics then. Don't just cherry pick the ones that suit Jordan. I don't know why you guys do that, man. It's always like, find something for Jordan. Don't be consistent with another star. When Jordan is number one, find an excuse why other stars did well. They had better stars. They played in a sucky era. There was no NBA. You find some excuse, and then for Jordan, you don't do the same thing. You can find knocks against the NBA when he played. I don't know if you know what people were saying about the NBA when he played, but you could find holes in the NBA. And then when Jordan wins, you elevate Jordan, but when another star wins, you don't elevate stars. When Jordan loses, you have an excuse, but when another star loses, you don't have the same excuse.
Even with all the excuses for other players, like you said, Magic Johnson, he had stars. Kobe had stars. LeBron had stars. Yeah, those are excuses. But even if you take all of that stuff away and just look at purely statistics, I still think Michael Jordan. I mean, with Wilt Chamberlain, we can argue because the pace was higher in his time. No, dude. When you say you still think and we can argue, no, it's a fact. This is not an opinion. Wilt Chamberlain has better statistics than Michael Jordan. There's no dispute on that. I mean, there shouldn't be a dispute. And when it comes to other players, if you don't want to go by Wilt Chamberlain, that's fine. You can find other players who have just as good of stats as Michael Jordan or better. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is an all-time leading scorer. He has more blocks. He has more rebounds. He has a better field goal percentage. Other players played more games. Other players have more steals. Other players have more assists. You're just assuming that Michael Jordan has the number one resume, and you're assuming that no other star is on his level or near his level. Well, part of that comes with the eye test, because if you watch Michael Jordan play, he's like nothing I've ever seen, which means with that, the statistics, the intangibles, the awards, the achievements, he's got the complete package. I mean, we can go with Wilt Chamberlain.
And so do other players. So do other players. So do other players. And again, one player doesn't win. I don't know why you keep going back to Wilt Chamberlain didn't win. One person does not win a ring. Why do you Michael Jordan fans always act like you guys will acknowledge it's a team game, you know it's not an individual sport, and then you go back to an individual thing like rings. One player does not win rings. It's a team that wins rings.
No, but players have a huge role in winning championships, and Michael Jordan had a huge role in the Chicago Bulls teams. You take him off those Chicago Bulls teams, I don't think they win one championship.
And you take off stars off of other teams, and you think they're all going to win just as much? Maybe they will, but just like when you take Michael Jordan off the Bulls, they have a less chance to win. When you take other stars off teams, they have a less chance to win.
That's true. But Michael Jordan might have the biggest impact of his team, of his Chicago teams. Because if you take him off those teams...
No, but how do you... Look, Magic Johnson, according to Michael Jordan, was known as the ultimate team player. The ultimate team player is the one that has an impact on his team. Michael Jordan was considered by some people, and this was unfair to Mike, he was considered a ball hog and someone who shot too much and someone who didn't help his team win. And in fact, their teams lost a lot, and they only started to win when he started to pass more and be more of a team player. So when you say he had the most impact, well, you are factually wrong then, because he had teams that lost. Why didn't he win every season?
Oh, in his prime, he won 6 NBA championships.
His team did.
No player wins every year. And I'm not saying he's a perfect player.
Well, when you say in his prime, he wasn't in his prime in his 80s? He just magically got in his prime in his 90s?
Well, he was 27 in his first NBA championship. I think he's entering his athletic prime. 26, 27, 25. He's still a young player.
What a coincidence! You're telling me. You're telling me. How do you know a person's prime is 27 around that time? How do you know when a prime is? This is literally a matter of opinion. I think a player is probably going to be better than when he's younger than 27. And in fact, according to you, Michael Jordan in the 90s was a better player than Michael Jordan in the 80s. He was more well-rounded. But you keep saying that.
Yeah.
How do you know this? There's no proof. How do you know this?
Because playing in the NBA, he gained experience. You can see that with statistics.
Okay, so what about when other players need more experience?
This went up.
Okay, well, first of all, a lot of his statistics went down. No, a lot of that's again, you're just making things up now. A lot of his statistics went down. He wasn't the same scorer in the 90s as he was in the 80s.
No, I never said
he became a better three-point. But that's a huge part of his statistics, right? That is statistics, and that's a huge part of it. If you take off scoring, I'm pretty sure you're not going to put Mike as number one.
No, but good thing scoring exists in the NBA.
Right. Yeah,
he was a great scorer.
There were other people who could score just as many points. I could go down the list. Wilt Chamberlain scored just as many. Kareem scored just as many. Jerry West could score just as much as Michael Jordan. If Magic wanted to, he could have scored 30 points a game. Dr. J was close to Michael Jordan.
Well, you're saying if you wanted to, how would you know if you wanted to? How would you know? Well, first of all, there's two ways I know this. But remember, I didn't just say Magic. I said other players too, so you don't have to go with just Magic. But you asked me about Magic, so we'll go with that. Yeah, we'll go with that. I'll go with that. So number one, if he's taking less shots to shoot because he's passing the ball, then do vice versa. If he's not passing the ball, he's going to probably shoot the ball. And number two, other stars, Hall of Famers, have explained, including Magic Johnson himself, that if Magic wanted to, he could have scored more points. No one stopped Magic offensively. He could score 30 points a night easily if he wanted to, but he passed first. He was a point guard. He was a team player. He had a pass-first mentality. He didn't care about statistics like Michael Jordan did. He wanted to win rings, and that's why he went to the finals more times. He was the ultimate team player, and that's also Michael Jordan's opinion that he was the number one team player. And just so you know, on a side note, they were going to play one-on-one for a pay-per-view event, and it didn't work out. You know why it didn't work out, man? Michael Jordan was worried that if Magic Johnson beats him, that he was worried that's going to bring him down, because he said something like, Michael Jordan is known as the ultimate one-on-one player. Magic Johnson is known as the ultimate team player. So if Magic beats Jordan, that brings down Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan didn't go through with it. Well, that's just the same argument with me saying, oh, well, the stars, that's almost the same boat as that, because you say, oh, well, Magic could have scored, but he didn't. So you really can't make that argument. One,
but hold on.
Another thing is you're mentioning.
Hold on. Remember, I didn't just say Magic. I gave you a list of other players. You asked me about Magic, so I explained it. But even if you don't, I don't know why you don't want to give. If Magic statistically is scoring 22 points a game, he's scoring 20 points some games, and you know he racks up assists. Just use common sense. If he's not passing the ball, he's going to score more. And other stars have said Magic could score more if he wants to, and Magic has said he could have scored more if he wants to. And also, it's not just scoring. Even if you disagree that Magic could have scored more, or you don't know, what about the other statistics? Magic could get better rebounds. Magic has a better field goal percentage. Magic racks up assists. What about other intangibles? Magic could play every position and dominate every position. I mean, it's not just scoring.
No, it's not just scoring. And the thing we were talking about was scoring, and you said, oh, well, you mentioned Wilt Chamberlain was a better scorer, which I don't think so. Because if you look at the career stats,
wait. No, again, we're back to ignoring facts, man. I apologize for interrupting you. I know you. I want to let you finish, but when you say you don't agree, and we're just talking about scoring, no, we were talking about other things too, not just scoring. And when you say you don't agree, Wilt Chamberlain has better stats
scoring. You asked me.
Yeah, when you say that Wilt Chamberlain, you don't agree.
Greatest.
No, but when you say you don't agree that Wilt Chamberlain scored more, you're factually wrong. Check the numbers, man. He could score just as much as Michael Moore
of his career.
You're talking about his total. Okay, so are you talking about his career totals or individual seasons?
His career totals.
Okay, so you're kidding me, man. They're basically a tie. Michael Jordan has like a 0.1. No. He has a 0.1. 0.1. That's basically a tie, man.
No,
he's statistically higher by 0.1.
So they're virtually the same score.
Yeah, right. According to the career average, if you want to go by career average.
So you can't make that argument for Wilt Chamberlain.
You can, because he had lots of seasons where he was scoring an insane amount of points, averaging 50 points, 40 points, 30 points, and all the records he has where he scored multiple times in 30s, 40s, whatever, 50s, 60s, and then of course his 100-point game. There's just I've never known anyone who debated that factually Wilt Chamberlain was a better scorer. I mean, just by common sense, if you were an NBA owner and you had to give a guy your best chance to score, you throw it down to Wilt Chamberlain inside, and he's going to give you a statistically field goal percentage of a better chance to score because he's a big guy inside. His field goal percentage was better than Michael Jordan. And then also just one-on-one. I mean, if Wilt Chamberlain played Michael Jordan one-on-one, it'd be a joke. Wilt Chamberlain, any big guy, if they're on the same level as the small guys, all things are pretty much equal. Star players, the big guy is usually going to win.
Okay, well, let me ask you a hypothetical. Because we did use a hypothetical with Magic Johnson. You're saying that he could score more points if he wanted to. That's all hypotheticals. Let me ask you one.
It's not all hypothetical. He did that. It's not all hypothetical. He had seasons where he scored more points than others, and he had games where he took over as a scorer and had less assists. And again, NBA Hall of Famers have explained that he could score more points if he wants to, and Magic Johnson explained he could score more points if he wants to. And just common sense, man, he's passing the ball. If a point guard like him is not going to pass, he's probably going to score more.
Okay. Wilt Chamberlain's highest scoring season was 1962. He scored 50 points a game. If you put Michael Jordan, let's put Michael in the 1962 NBA season, you honestly think he'd just be scoring 30 like he usually does? No, he'd be scoring. I could imagine. I can see him scoring 60 points a game. Because they even before I address that,
I know you acknowledge this, but I just want to make sure again. Now you're just doing random hypotheticals, time travel, right?
No, it sounds like that, yes, but you're making the argument that Wilt Chamberlain's a better scorer, and I'm telling you, well, if you put him in the era of Wilt Chamberlain, you put Michael Jordan there, I don't think he would be scoring 30 like he usually does.
Hey, please subscribe, and if you disagree with me on something, you can go on my program and show me your facts on whatever you disagree on. If you want to go on, let's set it up. Send me an email. The email is right there in the description section. Thank you.